So, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Risking It All podcast. We're back after another break, and I'm joined today by our new co-host, John Conway, a business partner in the IC Media Group and Commercial Solar Exchange. You may regret this, John, but we've roped you in to be a host for the foreseeable.
That's quite all right.
Thanks, mate. Brian's got a wee day off, back in the office, and most importantly, we are joined by our guest today, who is Mike Lally, the Managing Director of the Freedom Boat Club.
Thanks for having me.
And a few others as well, and a few other companies in there for Mike. So I really appreciate you coming on, mate. I've met you before through networking. John knows you really well too.
Yep. No, it's been fantastic, and thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome.
Absolutely. And as always at networking, you only get a very, very, very small piece of your story at those events. There's a lot more to it, so we want to share it with everyone really today.
Sounds good.
And before we get into the Freedom Boat Club, you may have guessed I've not been in many boats in my life, so I'm really interested to hear about that. Before we get into that, we always like to take you through your full journey. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's start with, growing up. Where were you from? What was your family dynamics? How did you get on in school? All that fun stuff. Talk us through all that.
Yeah, so I grew up in Wishaw, which is a mining town. I mean, you guys all know it. Yeah, it's a great wee town, really good community, and we were kind of privileged there. We had a really nice house. We lived on the side of a housing scheme, so we had all of the benefits, I would say, of growing up normal. But we had stuff that people round about us just didn't have, and it was really great at that time to share that with the rest of the people that we knew in the area, And I mean, we were driving cars at 7 and 8 because we lived on the side of the memorial park, and then the Perchy Pond, which was a big abandoned quarry at the time. And oh god, we like I say, my dad had cars that we used to take out and rally round, and we had tons of fun doing that.
Any crashes?
Plenty. Plenty. In fact, my brother wrote off his first car when he was 12.
Wow, that's impressive.
And it was my dad's brand new Rover. It was a Rover Stirling or something like that, I think it was.
Right.
It was only about 6 months old, and he took it and put it around a tree down the Perchy.
Oh, wow.
And then I get to blame for it.
Beyond the teacut then.
Well beyond the teacut. Yeah, well beyond the teacut. Several rolls later.
And you mentioned your brother there. So
yeah.
what did your household look like then? You mentioned your dad, your brother, who was all in there?
So mum, dad, 2 brothers.
Right.
Yeah, 2 brothers. Like I say, grew up in Campbellsnethan, which is just at the top of Wishaw, just before you get to New Mains. We had a house in Ireland that we used to go to 7 times a year, and that's really what gave me a love for boats.
Right.
Because our house over there was on the side of a loch,
right?
And it was Loch Lomond, it was called, and when I say we were privileged, we had a lot of things that other people didn't, but my dad was very down to earth with how we were raised as well. So my dad had a construction company.
Right.
So we grew up, I've never had pocket money in my entire life. We had wages. And, I remember before we were allowed out during the summers, we had to go and do half a shift.
Right.
That's how we were raised. And in Ireland, the boats that we had over there were like a £500 boat that my dad bought at an auction.
Right.
That you spent 9 hours a day on the water and only 45 minutes with the engine running. The rest of the day was trying to get the engine running. But in hindsight, looking back, that was the most fun. We had more fun trying to fix it and tinker with it and rebuilding it and putting it together than what we did actually having it running and being on the water.
Right, that makes sense. So your father had his own business as well, so
yep.
Maybe a bit of a pass on to you around the whole building a business side of things. What was that like growing up with someone who had a construction company and, you know?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we were, even from a really young age, you know, my dad was brilliant with us. He took us to the sites and,
right.
you know, we were exposed to a lot of really good, wholesome stuff. And you know, I remember being a kid, no older than my 6-year-old, climbing scaffolds and all of that. when my dad's going, we used to call it money collecting. You know, where he would go around on a Friday and collect all the money from the jobs that he had done, and then we would. We'd be climbing the scaffolds as he's in talking to the guys, and he'd be out shouting, "Get down that fat scaffold!" you know, and it was great. And my dad was he was always he was really practical with stuff. So there wasn't a thing my dad couldn't do.
Right.
You know, he could turn his hand to absolutely anything, whether that was, you know, steel erecting or bricklaying or putting foundations in or running pits. So we had exposure to all of those trades from, well, forever. You know, I can't remember not having exposure to those trades.
Just because you kind of had to.
Just because
you wanted to be involved in it.
We
it was
really
enjoyable.
wanted it. We really wanted to be involved. Yeah. Exactly. And my dad had this kind of, you know, he loved fixing things and tinkering with stuff, and I kind of picked that from him as well. Because I remember, you know, the old kind of VCRs that you had, not the ones where you put it in the front, the ones where you put it in the top and shut it. Yeah. So I remember him stripping down one of those at one time because something had happened, and I was engrossed by that. I remember I was sitting watching everything and probably buckled his ear with you know, with questions about what he was doing, how he was doing it, blah blah blah. And I don't remember how much time passed between him doing that and then me stripping one down. And I remember distinctly stripping it down because the cassette roll get caught up inside it, and I stripped it all down to take all of that out. And that was my kind of first ever experience, you know, fixing something or stripping something, and I really, really loved it.
Yeah.
Really, really enjoyed it. I could always put it back together. I could always put it back together. And my dad taught me that when you're stripping something, you create a mind map of it. Mm-hmm. So as you're stripping it, you remember how it all goes back. And it's hard to explain this to people, right? Because unless you know it and you can experience it, you just don't know it and you will never experience it. Yeah. But when you're stripping that thing down and then you're putting it back together, it could be 1,000 parts. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if there's 1,000, 2,000. If you strategically strip it, when you start from the outside, for some reason, you just know where it all goes.
Right.
And I don't know if that's a normal thing, or if that's a thing that I've built up. But I've had that forever after that. So
I think, speaking from experience of a desk jockey over here, I wouldn't say there's anything normal about being able to do that. Like, you know. But it sounds like you've maybe got that sort of problem-solving, analytical mind where you can just kind of take things apart and put them together.
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
Yeah. Which is a great skill to have, to be fair. I think if I stripped a cassette player, it would have been in the bin 10 minutes after I'd done it. But
I guess a lot of do is just inheriting that learning lessons, and people learn things in different ways. And
for sure.
Obviously now it's very, very different because you look at YouTube or whatever, and you know you see somebody stripping something down, building it back up again. But you know, back in the day, you know, you said you came from Wishaw, kind of a mining town. I came from a similar background in the East Coast, and I do remember, like, in the hut in the back garden where my dad was doing something, things would be kind of laid out on the bench, and just thinking now, just what you've said there, kind of chronologically.
Yep.
So I guess as things come out of something, they were placed in some kind of sequential order.
Correct.
So then when you fix the problem, you then just reverse that back in. So it makes complete sense.
And by the way, what I noticed, from doing this with other things over the years, is that you never actually figure out what the problem is. You just strip it down, put it back together, and then it seems to work.
It's like they turn it off and off.
There is this thing that there's the majority of problems when it comes to IT and different things like that aren't actually diagnosed. They're just fixed without actually understanding what the problem is, and a lot of it, the majority, is turn it off and back on again and it'll probably work. and you never ever figure out what the problem was, but you just know if it's off and back on, it's going to work.
So see, when you're back in Ireland then you spent that summertime across there, was that mostly just like a family holiday type thing, or was your dad doing some business work as well?
So that was, my dad would buy a lot of property over there, and his family were from there. Like my dad's grandfather, that's where they grew up. So my dad spent a lot of time over there, and like I said, we did as kids do as well, and we'd lots of cousins there. So it was a family trip, and we did that about 7 times a year. And I mean, we had that wee boat, and when we always kind of had money, like us as kids, because we were always working, right? So I remember buying with my 2 brothers, probably when we were about 12, a 140 horsepower engine, right, for this boat. And no, we were older than that. We were about 16, and I had asked my dad to bring it over in the car, and it took a lot of convincing, because it was a humongous engine. So eventually we managed to convince him to bring the engine over, and we took it in, and we're looking at this humongous engine, and then this tiny 14-foot Picton speedboat, and we're looking at it going, right, well, let's get it up to the farm. So we phoned our cousins, says, right, we're bringing the engine up. So we took it up to cousin's farm, and we started stripping out all the riggings of the engine that was there, and then we took the other engine, brought it round to use block and tackle to lift it, because it weighed a ton, and then we mounted it as anyone would think you mount an engine, bang smack in the middle, right? You would think that just makes sense, and as a 16-year-old, mounting something in the middle, that was the extent of my engineering knowledge at the time. So we got it, and we mounted it, and we had to drill new mounts, we had to seal up all the old mounts and stuff, and then that was us. We got it on, we got it rigged, and we were ready to go. Then we take it down, put it in the water, and it's sitting, arse heavy, and then we put the power down, and the thing just wants to do backflips, just wants to keep doing backflips. So, we're looking at it, going, right, okay, well, what do we do in this situation? We'll just fill the front up. So we just filled the front up with sand. So just sand in the front, and that was enough to keep the front, so that it wouldn't tip. But what it would do is it would go up, it would come down onto the plane, then it would take off like an arrow. So we thought we'd cracked it, right? And then we're going round the lock, and you could go round the lock anti-clockwise, fine, completely fine. But the minute you tried to get around clockwise, the thing just wanted to flip over to the side. So we went back and we started researching, well, why could that happen, and how's that possible? And what we realised was that when you mount an outboard engine, you need to mount it offset at the back, and you mount it offset because of the torque in the propeller.
Right. Okay.
So the torque in the propeller puts the strain all the way down the length of the boat, and And when you're going round in one direction, it's fine. But when you're going round another, it just wants to. When you're turning, it just wants to flip you over.
So that good direction, like you said, anti-clockwise, you're kind of turning into where it's wanting to push you.
Correct.
So you're all right. Right.
Correct.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. So we to take it, we to dismantle the whole thing, and we calculated out the amount of offset that you need for the particular size and the particular prop, and we got it. We got it kind of up. We got it running, and we had that boat in that configuration for about 6 months before the cracks started to appear. And by cracks, I mean actual cracks down the side of the boat because of the amount of torque that was being placed with the engine, and then all the sand that we had put up the front of it. So I remember bringing it out again, right back up the farm. And we created the Frankenstein boat.
Right.
You know, we welded we welded up a whole frame, and we welded a frame into the back of it. We fiberglassed it into the frame, and then put the engine mounts through, so they were now on the frame, and the frame was carrying the weight of the boat instead of the weight of the engine instead of the fiberglass frame, which is obviously not equipped for it, and that's what we did, and that boat lasted us for probably the next 8 or 9 years.
Right. Okay.
In that configuration.
And I like how you called it the Frankenstein boat. That's
definitely what it was. I mean, it was nothing special. You know, it was a piece of wood down on the deck, and we used to sit on probably an upside down bucket, and
right.
And that was pretty much it. You know, nothing spectacular about the boat at all.
So it's starting to make sense already why you've got a company called Freedom Boat Club, because we can see just with this story that your passion for boating, or if that's the right phrase to use, was born. And you mentioned your 2 brothers in this scenario. And you're obviously a father, and what had he done? And at this point, so you said you were 16, is that right?
So we were about 16 at that point.
16. And before we get on to the next part of your life, at age 16, how were you academically? Was there any sort of things that you were doing in school that you were showing a keen interest, or was it just I want to work and
I was
get
rubbish.
in the boat?
I was utterly rubbish at school.
Right.
But what I did at school was I did use that as a kind of outlet, and I'll explain that when I remember being 9, right, and I remember being so my mum was a housekeeper of a church, and it was for a priest called Canon Boyd, who became like a grandfather to us. And my mum was a housekeeper for about 52 years.
Oh, wow.
So a long time. So we grew up in and out the chapel houses, and we spent a lot of time in a parish called St Brendan's down in Motherwell and Barnes Road, and I remember being in there one day, and somebody came chatting at the door, and I went and answered it, and the guy said, "Do you want to buy any sweets?" And I said, "I've got no money for sweets," and they went away, and I said, "Mum, somebody's come around the door like that." Aye, some people do that. I said, "I want to do that." And I went round and I said to my dad, "Dad, take me to the cash and carry." So my dad took us up to the cash and carry, and I put together like your mix-ups, your 10 pence, 50 pence, 20 pence, pound, and then macaroon bars, tablets, all that sort of stuff, and packaged it all into different things, and then set out, chat them all the doors. And I would have been about 9 or 10, whatever primary 6 is. I think it's about 9 or 10, and or 10 and 11, either way, and around chatting my doors. And I remember one house, or one of the first houses that I chapped, the woman says, "Oh, sorry, he's already been." I says, "All right, what day does he come?" It's Wednesday. And I says, "All right, I'll be there on Tuesday." I'll be there next Tuesday. and that's what kind of started it. And I'd go around selling sweets every single week, in different streets. And I loved it. I did that for a couple of years until I went to high school. And then when I went to high school, it kind of changed a bit. Times were kind of changing, and then I started fixing PlayStations and let's say, selling dodgy DVDs, if you like. I remember I was like 13, 14. If you came into my room, it was just full of duplicators and CD printers and all of that sort of stuff, and just piles of PlayStations where I'd asked my dad to take me to the bars, right? And I remember going and talking to the guy that chipped the PlayStations in there. I told him I'd pay him £300 if he taught me how to chip the PlayStations. And the deal that we came to was he taught me how to chip the PlayStation, and then I would buy all the chips for him. So that's what I did. And at that age, kind of 14, 15, when you walked into my room, it was just floor to ceiling with PlayStations. It was always post-it notes with the person's name on it.
Right.
So just post-it notes with the person's name that owned the PlayStation, and that was a ton of fun. And every week I'd go in and I'd be selling these about the school and all that sort of stuff. It was
so that's really interesting, actually, because you spoke about initially about how you get introduced to boats and pulling things apart and putting them together and problem solving and being handy, which is a great skill to have in business. Now you've already jumped onto your first sales job at 9-year-old roughly, where you were selling sweets. So you've kind of got both parts of the puzzle, really, sales and problem solving. And looking back at your selling sweets or selling PlayStations, I remember chip PlayStations, but they must have been in demand. They were brilliant,
big time. Aye.
And was there anything, thinking back to that you just really enjoyed about that whole, having a product or a service and selling it at such a young age as well?
I loved every minute of it. Like, I like the thrill of I like the thrill of chasing a yes, if I'm honest. Now, I very much think that sales is all about going through the nose to get to your next yes, and I think it's really easy to get bogged down by the no's that you get, but I just look at it as for every no you get is one step closer to a yes. And when I was a kid selling sweets, that's probably the biggest lesson I learned. You could go to 100 houses, and then your 101st, that would be your first sale. And sometimes they would take a $5 worth of stuff, and that made the entire day worth it.
Yeah,
that made the entire day worth it. So yeah, definitely chasing the yes, and then when you get the money in your pocket, it wasn't about the money, but it was the satisfaction that you had done it and you'd done it yourself.
I was trying to work that out actually, just when you're talking there, Mike, what the motivation really was, because you probably didn't really need extra cash, or your dad was quite strict and made you kind of work for that type of thing. And I was going to also ask a question: what was the motivation here? And you've just answered it there, without being asked directly. It was getting that yes and that kind of that journey to get something, and then getting the cash at the end of the day is kind of the bonus ball type thing. And
it was definitely
completely get that. Yeah. I mean, I did that similarly as well when I was a boy as well. Set up a couple of wee door-to-door things selling eggs and papers and rolls and stuff like that. And you're right, you went to loads of stuff and they, no, we're fine, we're okay. And then when you get that, yeah, we'll take it, and then you get that repeat order type thing. It feels brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't so much the money, although the money was really good. It was just getting that, that acceptance of you've managed to sell something to somebody.
That's right.
And it's a good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic feeling. Absolutely fantastic. And while all that was going on, we also, we were big into like motorsport, motorbikes, all of that sort of stuff. So our garage was filled with motorbikes that we didn't own. And how we kind of started this was, my dad would never let us get motorbikes, ever let us get motorbikes, and we pleaded with him forever, and it was no. So I saved up, and I remember buying my first bike. It was a wee It was a wee TL80, I think it was. I bought it for a pal of mine, and I used to keep it down the park. Like I kept it under a piece of wood down the park, right? And we had it for about 2 weeks, right? And you know, my dad be looking at us getting up in the morning, getting out, and then coming back, stinking of petrol, and then eventually he was like, right, go and get the bike, go and get it. I know you've got one, just go and get it. So then we brought it up and put it round the back, and then that was us started. It was one bike, then it was another bike, then it was 5 bikes, and then it was 5 bikes and a buggy, and then it was a quad and a trike, and then before we knew it, we were stripping them down and rebuilding them, and you know, doing the top ends, the bottom ends. We were stripping out the gearboxes. We were doing everything that there could be to do on bikes. So much so that all the people in the area used to come to us to get their bikes fixed, to get different things done, and we would never charge them, but there was always this kind of understanding that well, we can use them. So we an unlimited supply of motorbikes anytime we wanted them. And interestingly enough, you never ever went out in them during the summer. It was only ever the winter. You would go out in your bikes. No idea why.
I was going to ask. I thought summer would be prime time as well.
You would think it would, but that's as I remember it, it's just not whatever happened.
Right. Okay.
You know, we always used to go out in the winter on the bikes, never the summer.
Right. That's interesting. And you mentioned a lot there around like, it's just that theme of pulling things apart, putting them back together, and you know. And was your brothers in the same boat as you at this time? Your 2 brothers. What sort of difference in age were they to you? Were they all close?
So it was a year and a half between each of us.
All right.
So 3 years between the youngest and oldest.
So you are all really close in age, and with the 3 years, we use like a, you know, like a wee gang there.
we definitely were. We definitely were. I mean, not so much in the kind of IT and that sort of stuff. That was kind of my thing. They weren't interested in that.
Right.
But with the motorbikes and all that, absolutely, they were in the boats. They were right into it. Yeah, they were right into it.
Brilliant. And so we've kind of got up to about 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
Which has been very interesting. You've accomplished a lot in your first 16 years compared to many. What was the next step like for you? Did you do anything after school? Did you go straight into employment? What did you do?
So at about at 16, I'd been in 4th year at the time. So this takes me on to the start of another business that I kind of got involved in, definitely illegally at that time, and then latterly legally, and it was something that I identified as being a travesty within the school system. Right. Was that kids under the age of 18 couldn't get their hands on fireworks, right? So I set to right that wrong. And I set up a whole distribution. I had people that would go to the shops and they would pick them up, and we'd take them in, we'd snap the sticks and put them in the school bags and take them in. We sold them all over the school, and we did this for about 3 weeks until it started. I mean, it went pretty tonto in the school. They were blowing up the toilets and setting them off in the hall. There were streamers getting set off outside. I mean, it was like in our school during that 1 year, it was like Beirut or something. And I remember they eventually got back that it was me that was distributing them and all that sort of stuff. And I had my 2 brothers doing some stuff with us as well. And I get called into Mrs. Hamilton Smith's office, who are friends with my parents. Miss Hamilton Smith and Mrs. Cochrane were the two teachers. And I remember sitting down and she says, "Mr. Lally, we know you've been selling fireworks, and you'll have to explain yourself." And this is what's happening. She says, "Where are you getting them from?" I explained where I was getting them from. She says, "How much are you buying them for?" I told her. She says, "How much are you selling them for?" I told her. She said, that's a good margin. That's what I remember is what she said. That's a good margin. And she said, we're going to have to suspend you because of the seriousness of of this. I said, yeah, I understand that. So I was first out the door. I was suspended. So then my brother Tommy then he got caught selling them at the same time while I'm suspended, and he get pulled in, same sort of speech. You're out the door. And then my brother Paddy was still there and still selling them. He must have been better at it than we were, because he didn't end up getting caught. And he's continued to sell them for about another 3 or 4 days. And then the school held a general assembly. Every pupil in the school, in the main hall. We know you've got fireworks. We know, we've told you that this is unacceptable in the school. You're going to have to bring them forward. And people were going down 3 and 4, and there's 6 and 5, and then it's Paddy's turn. And he walks down, empties the school bag, and the school bag falls onto the desk, and then they're going onto the floor, and then it was, right, okay, Mr. Lally, stand over there, and then he gets taken, and he gets eventually suspended as well. So all 3 of us are now suspended for a week, and my dad took us to Ireland. My dad took us to Ireland for the week we were away. So,
well done, boys. Good hustle.
Had it been something a little bit more serious, my dad would have. He was always very strict, but I think that was a kind of, well, fair play to you sort of thing. But it's still wrong, and don't do it again. But fair play to you. And that was my first ever experience with fireworks. But now I do. I don't know if you know, but I've got fireworks shops. That I run. So we import them into Scotland and then set up the fireworks shops.
So no longer school bag distribution. It's
no longer illegal distribution. No, it's perfectly legitimate and all above board.
And that whole fireworks. Because some people love fireworks, some people hate them. Obviously, I remember I went to Holy Cross in Hamilton and. The start of November, Beirut's a great analogy, but it was carnage.
It is, aye.
Yeah, I don't know if your fireworks made it over that direction when I was there, maybe, but and what made you think, oh well, fireworks, that's a great opportunity for me? Was there anything that appealed to you, or was it just chance?
So I loved them, and everyone around me loved them. So because they all loved them and I loved them, well, why wouldn't I make money from them? It's just I could get them. I knew how to get them. I knew what I had to set up to get them. So I just did that, and then I had other people that would buy them from me that then sold them on as well. And like I said, it was very much of a whirlwind thing, because it was very, very short. But it seemed to, like, in that 3-week period, we had set up full distribution, full supply chain, full everything, with zero understanding about what that actually means or what you're supposed to do. But it was very logical, because to get them, you need to set something up. To sell them, you need to set something up. And that was immediately apparent to me when we came to do it. So that was the kind of drive, I would say, is that I wanted to do it. I loved the thrill of doing it and setting it up, and then I loved the thrill of pushing it to see just how far we could push it.
That makes perfect sense. It's like taking the sweets sales job and just taking it to the next level.
Everything's kind of connecting up here, and your logical mind's coming through as well. Just back to that, that stripping something down, building something up. You're understanding, there's a process for that, and back to sequential and stuff like that. So it seems you're kind of already subconsciously kind of building that into your next venture type thing.
Aye, it felt very much like that. It did feel very much like that. And at that kind of 16 age, with doing the fireworks and all of that was the age I also decided to go into IT, because it was a very logical step from, you know, PlayStations, all of that sort of stuff, dodgy DVDs, if you like. Those were, by the time I was 16, 17, that was all, it wasn't as big as what it was. You know, people were downloading, it was Kazaa and it was Morpheus and all of that sort of stuff that people were getting their stuff from latterly. So there wasn't as much of a demand. So I went in and I started doing I started doing IT, where I would do networking, and I would do computer repairs, and I even did lessons, computer lessons for older people and stuff like that. And I did that probably for the next few years. The company was called Lalcom, and all my pals at school, that was a nickname for me. It was Lalcom.
Right.
You know, because I had this business and I would do it pretty much as I could. So weekends and stuff like that, I very rarely went out. You know, I was always working or going up to see somebody or doing something for them or doing training or rebuilding a laptop or, you know, fixing power pins. That used to be something that I did millions of, or screens, laptop screens. The amount of power pins that I've resoldered is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Right. Okay.
And because I don't know if you remember the way the old laptops used to have the wee pin, and they would always get shaken loose, and sometimes you had to hold it up or pull it across, or and it turns out it's actually dead easy to fix.
Right.
You know, really, really easy to fix, and I started doing a bunch of that, and then I formalised that when I left school. And I was never academic. You asked me about this before. I was never academic. I was always practically minded. And in my 5th year at school, I did quite well. You know, I did surprisingly well, much better than what I thought I was going to do. And I get everything that I needed to get into this this IT course that I wanted to do in London. So my 6th year, I always wanted to do 6th year, and you had to be 18 to go on this course. So I went and did 6th year, but I didn't go to any classes in 6th year. I was just down the common room playing PlayStation and basketball, and then we would go out and we would. You know, I'd if I had a job on, I'd just go out during school hours and do it. I mean, it was pretty surreal thinking back to it. And I remember eventually, it was probably around the time of the schools formals. So you're probably talking November time, something like that. Can't remember exactly, but something like that. And the teacher brought me in, and it was Mrs. Who was it now? Can't remember. Anyway, she brought me in and she said, "Do you not think it's about time, Mr. Lally, that you consider moving on and leaving school?" And I says, "Look, let me do the school formal, and then I'll leave after the school formal." So she agreed, and that was what we were doing. I went to the formal, and then I left school after that, and that was me full time, pretty much into IT.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So that at that point, then you were kind of coasting, like a lot of people were doing, I suppose, at that stage, if you already know what you're going to do. And you mentioned this course in London.
Mm-hmm.
So between the November when it was like, right, I'm finished school, and that course starting, were you just focusing on your business then, your Lalcom?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. You know, I'd go to school every single day. I would sit on the computer. I would call people. I would, you know, I was very much in that business, but you know, I still had a ton of fun. Like I still, you know, the common room in our school was a brilliant place. It was brilliant. You know, people would come in, and literally we had PlayStations. We had we had the basketball set up in there, and you know, kids were smashing lights, and the ceiling tiles were falling down, and it was just such a great place. So yeah, I was working in the business, but primarily I was just having fun.
Yeah.
For that period, and then when I came out of school, it was probably around June time, something like that. That I was starting this course in London, and it was a number of different courses, but effectively it was to get my Microsoft certification. So it was it was my MCSE 2000 is what I did. So I did MCSE 2000. I did my CCNP, CCNA, and Cisco for networking as well, for the routers, and I went and I did that course over the course of about a year, while still working in the business and stuff like that. And then I was a fully qualified Microsoft engineer, and that's when things really started to take off, and I started to do really, really well. And how I did that was I would go into businesses, and at the time, infrastructure was starting to become a big thing. Companies were investing pretty heavily on Exchange servers, and they were investing very heavily on bringing co-locations, and people wanted to work from home and use their systems, and people thought that you had to invest a lot into a lot of heavy infrastructure in to make that happen, and it just wasn't the case. You could put something in that was dead easy, that would give you absolutely everything that you needed. So I spent my time going round taking all these really difficult things that they had out, because what people wanted was just something that worked.
Right. Okay.
They just people just wanted something that didn't fall down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what year was this roughly?
So this would have been 2004-ish.
So 2004.
2004, 2005.
So thinking back to then, my history might be off, this is before iPhones, this is just when Facebook got created, so social media wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
It was all just about being connected.
Yeah, exactly. So this was right at the beginning of the kind of
the boom,
the tech boom. Yeah. And like I say, I would go in, I would take out the Exchange servers and all that people had, because the biggest complaint was my emails are falling down all the time. My emails never work. Every time I put the computer on, it's not working. So all I did was I put them on. I put them on. I think it was pop 3 emails at the time, because nobody needed anything else other than that. You know, they just wanted an email in, and they just wanted an email out. You know, if you got to the core of it, that's really all they wanted. And I know, thinking back, you've got security issues and all of that with that, but the security, the security wasn't as much of a big deal then than what it is now.
Yeah.
You know, so I gave them that email system that just worked all the time, and then they would talk to me about how they wanted to share files among the business. I just gave them shared folders, and then that just worked as well.
So was it the training course that you attended and the Microsoft certification that enabled you to do that, Mike? Or it sounds like a lot of self-teaching going on here in the background as well. So a bit of both.
So I could do a lot of that before. I had the core understanding about how the networking worked, but the course down south certainly helped me with companies that had the infrastructure, that wanted to keep the infrastructure, but then still wanted it maintained. You know, and I was able to do that for them also.
You had the qualification to do so.
I had the qualification to be able to do that as well. So I did have a couple of clients that wanted to maintain that, and it meant that you know, I did have to spend a lot more time with them than what I did with the majority of the other clients that I had. And how I ultimately started selling to them was I would go in you know, if it was a new business that had an issue or with me, that had an issue with their IT system, I would go in and they're new to me, and I would say, well, what I can do for you is you've got a system here that's probably 3 years old. You know, I'll give you all brand new PCs, brand new terminals. I'll give you a brand new server, and all you'll do is you'll pay me monthly, and there's a 24-month contract, and that's what I started setting up.
Right. So it was more than just infrastructure and connectivity. It was a full shooting match.
Shooting match. It turned into that, you know, because logically that made sense, you know, because people wanted computers that worked.
Yeah.
They wanted new computers. People don't like spending money up front. You know, they just don't like doing it. But there's something psychological about spreading it over time. There's just something psychological about spreading it over time. At that time, I didn't really think about it. I just got to know that more people were interested in taking a full system if they spread the cost than if I told them this is how much it is for a full system. And that was a kind of developing thing. So that's not something that I went in knowing. That was just something that it was a whole bunch of, you know, failed meetings and a whole bunch of
listening. Importantly, listening to your customers.
A lot of listening, a lot of listening. I mean, I remember one of the very first clients that I had, and before I went in this course in London, it was a furniture company, right? And I remember getting in and chatting to the guy, and he was talking about what he wants to put into his business, and he was saying he wants to implement an SBS server, right? And I remember sitting on the other side of this guy thinking, what the fuck is an SBS server? I had no clue, zero idea what it was, right? Turns out it's just a small business server, right? But I'm sitting there going, right, okay. And then I turned the conversation from why he wants an SBS server to what is it you want the SBS server to do, and what do you want to achieve from the networking system that you want to put in, and what is it you ultimately want your staff to be able to do, you to be able to do. Do you want to work from home? Do you want to, how do you want that to work? And he told me. And I convinced him to go with this other solution, partly because I didn't know the solution that he wanted me to put in. And he was my client. He was my longest running client. In fact, he only ceased to become a client 2 years ago, or something like that. And that was long after my IT business had closed. Long after that. But he was one of my first, and he was absolutely my last client that I ever had, and I didn't have a clue what I was selling him when I was selling him.
Fantastic. Well, it must have worked.
It worked, for sure.
It definitely worked, and like I say, it was just a system that we put in that simplified the infrastructure. Never didn't work.
Brilliant. And I've got a couple of questions about that. So this IT business, your kind of first legitimate one. Mm-hmm. So first thing I was going to ask you is, obviously at the end of your high school career, you seem to be really laser focused that you wanted to go to London to do this course, which is great because a lot of people get to that age and they're a bit like, well, what do I do next? You seem to have a real focus on what was the next step for you. How did you come to that conclusion at the time? Obviously, you're looking at university, college, and all these other things that were available.
So I was not academic. So the idea of going to university that was just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it was, like I said, it was very logical. It was very, what makes sense for me to do what I want to do. If I want to work on these systems, a lot of people are going to ask me to get X. Yeah. So I need to get X, and that's what I went and did. I knew I needed a good level of Cisco certification, because at the time a lot of back end systems were using that infrastructure. A lot of people were using Microsoft. Microsoft was the biggest thing at that time, and at the time I did it, it was MCSE 2000 that I did, but it was around the time when 2003 was coming out. MCSE 2003, but I did 2000 and I never did another one after that. Because I didn't. I did that, and then that gave me the core understanding about how the systems worked.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That I never really had to continue to upgrade, and every 3 years, I mean, I'd renew the IT systems of the clients that work with me. I would always buy them new kit, and I'd put them onto the most recent system, and I just learned it. I just tried to learn it and work out how it worked. And thankfully, every year it became, or every new generation of products that came out were easier, and they were all very backwards compatible. So it wasn't difficult to get your head around it.
Aye, that's good, because if thinking there of if it wasn't backwards compatible, you might have a bit of a challenge renewing them all. But I mean, these companies, that's why they're, they are where they are into it. And the second question I had, so you spoke dead freely there about, I got a client here and I got a client there, and then I got a client there, and people listening to this, and myself, even my business career, getting clients can be hard sometimes. How did you go about acquiring new clients for your first business in IT?
Chatting a million doors.
Yeah.
Like a million doors. I don't think there's a business that I haven't visited in the whole of Wishaw, or Motherwell, or Hamilton, or East Kilbride, or I've probably spoke to them, walked round them, chatting. That's just what I did. It was very much a numbers game. And when you apply the numbers, you always get the. I mean, it's just you just always get it. No. It's hard to explain. You just always get it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it's going back to, I love this, because your love of IT was born out of your PlayStation chipping.
Mm-hmm.
You've used the techniques you used to sell sweeties to grow your first business. Just rolling up your sleeve, chapping the doors, working your way through the nose. And that's, sounds easy, but I know that would have been a lot of rejection, a lot of hard work, but just persistence.
That's what it is. It's persistence. But it's funny, right? When you do it the first time, it seems hard. But when you do it again, it's just, you know what works. So it's almost like you don't need to. I think the biggest hassle when it comes to people telling you how to sell versus actually going out and doing it is that rejection comes thick, it comes fast, and a lot of people don't deal with that until they're a lot older either. You'll remember, or you might not, but if you think of a kid, right, how much rejection a kid goes through. Daddy can have a sweetie, no. Mummy can have a sweetie, no. Granny can have a sweetie, no. They naturally go through that process, and they're resilient to it. But the older you get, you'll lose that resilience. So when people, honey can have a sweetie, no. That's you're done. That's you're done after that. So as you get older, you lose that resilience as you have as a kid. So I think getting that as a kid for me is what made it a lot easier when I was older. Because when you're older, you've just it is more difficult, but you just know, or I know now, all I need to do is just keep going. One more no is another step closer to a yes.
Yeah.
And
that's a brilliant analogy you've used about kids there. Actually, I've never thought of that rejection piece before, like that, where. And I'm always telling my kids, no, you're not getting that chocolate, and then I'll crumble after the 10th no. But that's kind of in a way that you're explaining, about sales, where it's
100%.
like,
Yep.
the reason my kids keep asking me for a sweetie is they know that after 10 or 12 or 15 times I will crumble. And it's very, very
or
simple.
negotiate.
Aye.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, you've articulated that really, really well. And it's actually refreshing to us as business owners as well to constantly hear that other people have that rejection factor day in, day out. Because sometimes, you think, is it just me or is it the business sometimes? But, and we read and we look at podcasts and stuff like that, and it always happens. But actually sitting face to face with another business owner and you saying the same type of thing as we feel on a daily, weekly basis, we all get no's and we understand that as a part of the journey to get the yes. And it is kind of refreshing, and it's nice to speak to other business owners just to, get that therapy, if you like, because it's just part of the deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you just have to, keep on it, and I admire you for your
I appreciate that.
your tenacity to do that. But absolutely goes back to childhood.
It definitely does. It definitely. Like I don't know if I would have been as sales resilient as what I am now had it not been for that experience.
Aye, yeah, no, much different. If you just arrive on this planet now, at our age, and then do that, much more difficult. But when you're just kind of brought up, it becomes a wee bit like second nature. Psychological stuff kind of kicks in it as well, and you just deal with it. You do.
Yeah.
Just part of your daily. Oh, cool, that's fine. Let's move on. And you just can't let it get you down.
No, that's it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And on the contrary, maybe the more modern generation, you could say, people that are grown up now that are only used to hearing yes. If someone's been spoiled and just always given everything they want, you can see how later on in life, looking at what we're talking about, that could actually lead to someone who isn't as resilient.
Oh, I think it'll destroy people.
Yeah.
I mean, you can already see it.
Yeah.
You can already see it. I mean, the entitlement that's in society now is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable.
I completely agree.
Here's my face.
I don't
give me money.
I don't even want to discuss it, but the entitlement thing over the last maybe 5-6 years is became very apparent to me, and actually others around me. And it is this entitlement thing, and it's horrible. See, when you see it, you obviously seen it because you just talked about it there.
Oh yeah,
you've definitely seen it, and I've definitely seen it and experienced it from from a distance from others, and it's just a horrible thing. But it's definitely becoming more and more these days.
No, definitely. But these things go full circle. They go full circle, and unfortunately, we're going to need some difficult times to bring that back full circle. Because there's an expression that easy times make weak men make hard times make strong men make easy times. And right now we're in the easy times, and people are getting mentally weaker, less resilient, and ultimately that can't happen forever. That it comes to a point where society starts to break down, and then there's a reset, and I think that it won't be long before that happens.
It implodes.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can kind of see it unfolding, can't you? But just going back to what you were saying there about the no's and the yeses, and sometimes when you think about society in general, breaking it down into something that straightforward actually makes a lot of sense to me. That's how resilience is built. And so going back to your first proper business, which sounds like it was a great success, you're still sort of teenage, sort of early 20s, sort of around about that part, is that right?
Probably 19, I think. 18, 19, something like that.
Brilliant. So still really, really young.
Really young, yeah. Really young.
And what did you run that business for the next sort of X amount of years? I know you said your last client left a couple of years ago, so it didn't sound like it went away quickly. What was the trajectory of that business, and then what led you on to the next one?
So the majority of my clients at that time were estate agents.
Right.
And that just seems it seemed to be it was at a time where 2005, 2006, 2007, where things were just mental for property. It was just crazy for property, and estate agents just needed their systems to work. So it was an easier sell. So I would go. I mean, I would go and rip out their system, give them a product, and charge them a monthly fee, and basically never talk to them. And that, you know, I had a lot of clients like that. And then in 2008, it was phone call after phone call after phone call.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, I have to cancel. And I lost that business in 2008 because I had, you know, I had a lot of, I had quite a few expenditures, and I had systems that I had paid for that, you know, I was expecting X amount over the next 3 years, and those contracts were just, you know, well, you can sue me if you like, but you're not going to get anything because we're closing the business. So that was my first failure, if you like. But it was a business failure as a 21-year-old or whatever I was. That I remember my feeling at the time, right? And my feeling at the time was just, oh well. And I remember specifically thinking about that. Oh well, I'll do it again.
Yeah. That's interesting, because I think, you know, I wasn't you know, in a working environment in the financial crash of 2008, but thinking around what's actually happened there is an external factor is kind of blown up, and it's wiped out your business, obviously, with the financial crash and whatnot. And I think a lot of people would feel hard done by, possibly, like, you know, looking out with themselves and going, oh well, this financial crash has cost me my business, you know, that's unfair and feeling unjust. Sounds like you've just went, oh well, on to the next.
Well,
is that fair? Or
absolutely. Like, I think it would. So it would definitely be harder now, because, you know, as you get older, you know, your monetary position changes, but so does your
risk appetite.
Your risk appetite, but also people who are relying on you, like wife, kids, all of that sort of stuff. So as a 20-year-old kid, I was still living at home. Like, it meant like any money that I was making, and it was a lot, was pocket money. Mm-hmm. Like, I was spending every penny, you know, everything. I was flying all over the world, and I had a girlfriend at the time. We go out for meals every day, and you know, we just spent whatever I wanted at that age, and I saved quite a lot of it that I lost in the same crash. It was like a lot of money, and I didn't care about it. Like, it just didn't seem to hit me at all. And I know now that it definitely would.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's changed between then and now, but I know now that it would definitely affect me if I lost. Yeah, you know, because even small losses are you know, hit you. But back then that was a massive loss, and I didn't care. Didn't care.
Maybe the youthful ignorance, I suppose, but also I think you make a point there around, like have you got a family now, for example?
Yeah, got two kids and wife.
2 kids and a wife, yeah. So that dynamic changes a lot, doesn't it, with business? And you know, fair play to you at 20, 21, having a really good business and then getting it wiped out, just dusting yourself off and cracking on. I think it just goes back to your story around resilience and just picking yourself up and cracking on every hurdle. But what was the next step after that? So the world is in chaos, the financial markets are in chaos. You need to give up all your perks that you've worked hard for. It's not as if you were given them. You've worked hard and you've got the benefits. So all that's wiped out. What was next?
What did I do? So I remember going out I went out to Canada for my cousin's wedding. In and around that time, 2001, 2002. And at the wedding, I get talked to a guy called Brian Whiten. And Brian had an aerial video and photography company. And it was one of the first of its kind. He'd built this UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle, which was basically like a small mini helicopter, and it had a gyroscope in the bottom of it with a professional camera, and it was one of the first ever kind of camera ships, if you like
a drone,
a drone type of thing, but it was an actual helicopter. And I loved this idea, right? But he was losing money, he couldn't make it work, and his model at the time was golf courses, right? So what he would do is he would go and he would charge a golf course 10 grand to do a flyover of their course, right? And I remember I said to him, Brian, look, why don't you give me half of the business? I'll come in. Here's my KPIs. If I do that in the next 8-10 months, do we have a deal? And he agreed. So I went out, and what I did was I went to him and I said, right, here's what we're going to do. We're now no longer charging the golf courses 10 grand to do a flyover. We're going to do it for them for free, and then we're going to go to businesses and get them to sponsor a hole. And instead of charging 10 grand, we'll charge 1,000 per hole per year. And that's what we did. We went and we started boots in the ground and going round and hammering it out, and I did that. I was over there doing that business on and off, flying over and back for a couple of years, and then Brian and I set up a marketing company, kind of a marketing company. It was called Super Surfer, and the idea with Super Surfer at the time was it was just a homepage, and we had affiliate links with eBay, affiliate links with Amazon, affiliate links with all these other people. So we were encouraging people to add that as your homepage and do everything from there, and we were getting cash. You were getting cash from that. So we run those businesses kind of in tandem, and then Super Surfer ended up not working out. I think within about a year after us setting that up, I think Bing made a product that you could move stuff on your homepage, and that blew it out the water. And I sold out of Heliviz, and around the time where my dad phoned me and said he wants me to come and take over the family business.
Right. Okay.
He was wanting to retire. So I sold out of that and moved back. Full. But I never moved out of Scotland. But I stopped going to Canada as much as I was going. And that was around about the same time as that I met my wife as well. She was at Glasgow Uni, and I met her on a bus, and she's from Texas.
Oh wow!
So I was flying forward and back to meet her in Texas around about the time that we were finalising that business as well.
Right. Whereabouts in Texas was she from?
Dallas.
Brilliant.
Yeah. At the time, she was going to school in San Antonio at Trinity University,
which is quite a bit south than Dallas, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, quite a bit in our standards. You know, it's about 8 hours of a difference.
No, in America though, that's just another car journey, isn't it?
That's a commute. That's a commute. So I would go over there, and I'd sneak into campus, and I'd stay with her in the campus there. For the week I was over, and when I went over, I would go to BNI's, right, over there, because I got myself involved with, loosely for a while in a company called ACN, which is a telecoms company. It was a network marketing company at the time, and that was an interesting experience for me in my sales development career as well. Because although these types of businesses don't work for a lot of people, they do work for certain types of people. and it definitely worked for my type of people. For me, so I set up a team over in San Antonio, and I would do all the BNIs, and I had teams in that area, so that when I flew over and back seeing Ash, I would go and visit the teams and stuff like that I had operating over there. And then I had one in Madrid in Spain as well, and I had the guys that were working for us here in Scotland as well.
And what age are you at this point?
So now I'm like 22 or 23.
So you're only a few years after the first hurdle.
Yeah.
And it, it's amazing. You're over the world. You've America, Canada, teams in San Antonio, Madrid.
Yep.
I find it fascinating how this is rolling off the tongue, and I'm just thinking,
and the world is still recovering,
and still recovering.
The early days of recovering that whole financial crash,
And how did you? So there's nothing easy about this, right? About doing all what you're saying, but how did you identify all these opportunities and have that sort of, all right, I'll just go and do a business here, I'll get involved?
So what's interesting, right? And I can talk a wee bit more about that when we talk about property and stuff like that a wee bit later, right? So people say that there's no opportunities out there. I've seen them everywhere, literally everywhere. And there's a yellow car analogy that I like to use when I talk about this, right? And it's, see if I said to you, how many yellow cars did you see when you were coming here today? Well, I don't know, one, maybe I saw one, probably none. But if I say, right, for every yellow car that you're going to see going home, I'll give you £1,000. You're never going to miss one. You'll just never miss it. Yeah, so when you know that opportunities have an ability to make you something, you look for them and you find them.
Yeah.
They're literally everywhere. They're literally everywhere. And it is not difficult to see them if you're looking for them.
Yeah, that's a good, very, very good point.
Like that.
You don't see it if you're not looking for it.
No, is that a deal then?
Yeah.
No, that's great. And so obviously you've got so many of these little opportunities or big opportunities floating around, and you've met your wife in San Antonio. So how did you kind of consolidate everything, and did your wife move back to Scotland with you? How did all that phase?
Yeah, so I met Ashley here. She came in a semester to Glasgow University.
Right.
So I met her at the Glasgow University here. Not that I went to Glasgow Uni, but I met her on a bus while she was at Glasgow Uni. Yeah. So with the network marketing type thing, that sort of died a death as I was getting busier doing other things. Right. And they changed compensation models and different things like that made it a bit more difficult to make money doing it, and it became less exciting, to be honest. Right. So that dropped off as I'm kind of getting involved in the scaffold construction business that your dad
was
my dad was retiring from. So I went into that, head first. And
what was that like? Because obviously up to this point, you've kind of just carved your own path. Mm-hmm. You've done loads of great things. You had your hurdle, and then you're back in the family business, and I'm sure that would have been an immense pride for you as well, allowing your dad to retire with the comfort that you're taking it over. But what was it like going back into, you're kind of going into a business that someone else has ran all their life?
So it's interesting, right? So I would never, like, my dad had a great business and he ran it a specific way, and but I wouldn't call what my dad had a business. Right. I would call it more I don't know what to call it actually, but as soon as you took my dad out of it, unless somebody could step into it, there wasn't a business there.
Right. Okay.
So it was my dad's efforts, which was colossal, And then there was another couple of guys that my dad had working for him. When we were younger, my dad had like 20, 25 guys working for him. But as we, you know, my dad was in his 70s, late 60s, 70s by this point. So not winding down, basically. And when I took it over, he had some scaffold. It was a decent amount of scaffold. And he had a couple of guys that were older. So when I came into the business, the first thing I did was get rid of the guys. And I brought in other guys that I went to school with and stuff like that that we pretty much started in scaffolding. Or my dad started in scaffolding. It's your pals. Any chance you get, your dad will give me a job. You know, and then they would go off and do the other things, and then eventually come back to work for me. So I blew the company up very, very quickly. Like within 2-3 years, we had a bunch of different guys working for us. We started taking on social housing contracts and we carved out a niche for kind of high level design stuff. So so we involved some pretty cool projects that involved a lot of design, including Glasgow University, where we built a scaffold across the back end of a roof, where we opened up the walls and we went in and we screwed through the girders, and we get metal plates made, and the metal plates extended out, and then we beamed off of that with the Apollo beams that we had, and then we come up off of that, 25 metre in the air with the scaffold. So pretty cool stuff.
Right.
Or I consider to be really cool at the time. So yeah, I built the business the way I understand building a business, and it was pretty successful. I brought in a layer of management that was brilliant. I had a guy called Graham Adam. He was a character, and a guy, Charlie Smith, who is a phenomenal guy. In fact, I retired Charlie 2 years ago, I think, because he kept taking heart attacks at work. So I said, Charlie, I think it's about time to go. Now I come in one day, he's on the phone, he's bent over the desk, holding his cell. I says, what's on? He says, it's my angina. I says, Charlie, away up the road to the hospital and get checked out. And he went up, it wasn't an angina attack, it was a full blown heart attack.
Wow.
And then the I kind of let that one go after having a conversation, but then we had another conversation a wee while later, and it was with his wife, who phoned me up, and she's getting off the nut at me like, hey, why are you letting Charlie work today? He's lying up there in that hospital. I'm like, what? And he's like, so that's a guy that took a heart attack, right? Get rushed to the hospital, and then from his hospital bed is organising the jobs the next morning without telling me. Right? And I'm getting shouted at off his wife, quite rightly so. Yeah, but yeah, the point is, the guys I had round about me when I built it were immense. Yeah, they were incredible. And the same goes with the scaffolders that I've got. I've got some Polish guys there that are phenomenal. Like, I hope they don't see this, but they do the work of 5 men, and that doesn't mean you get 5 times a rate. Except just in case you are watching it. Yeah.
But I think you make an important point there, and we're kind of at a similar position with our group of businesses. We're trying to find the Charlies that you're talking about, and trying to find the people to get the layers in, and you mentioned there just about the work ethic, and sometimes it's, business, you'll know this more than me, but you're not asking for a superstar, that you want them to be great, but you just want them to work hard and take in what you do what you need them to do.
Absolutely.
And sounds like you got that with the scaffolding business then? I
definitely did. I mean, don't get me wrong, we went through a lot of scaffolders.
Yeah.
You know, I think I've employed pretty much every scaffolder in Scotland, and then maybe employed them again. And you do, it's like a revolving door, scaffolding, and they're always chasing the money.
Aye.
You know, they're always chasing. They'll go somewhere for an extra £2 a metre.
There's no loyalty, is there?
Sorry, an extra 2 pence a metre. There's very little loyalty. I mean, I do have some loyalty with some of the guys, but you know, with most of them, it's the cash is the
Chase
big
the pound.
driver. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned there about like per metre. Is that how you would get paid as a scaffolder based on how much scaffolding you put in?
So a lot of times you get paid by the measure, or sometimes you get paid by the hour. It just depends on how you're set up and what your employer, how your employer's contract with whoever it is that they are dealing with works as well.
Got you, so it can vary as well. No, great. So you got the family business and you scaled it, which is amazing. At the point where you've got your management level team in there, what sort of age are you sitting at now in the timeline?
I'm probably like early 30s, like or maybe 29, 30, something like that.
Yeah. So at this point, you've got that layer in, business is going well. You've got your fireworks stuff as well, your shops.
Yep.
And you might see where I'm going here. So we've yet to talk about the Freedom Boat Club.
Yep.
So when did that come into your trajectory?
So I would, Ash and I would go over to America 2-3 times a year. You know, before we had the kids, and then it was like twice a year, pretty consistently for a long time. And now it's once a year, right? But in about 2016. I came across Freedom Boat Club in America,
right?
And I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was an incredible model. I thought that it would work really, really well in Scotland, but they weren't in Europe. It was a franchise model, but it wasn't as big as what it is at the moment. So I followed it, and I have been receiving emails from Freedom Boat Club from a woman called Sue Wallace since the very first time I ever reached out to them way back then, and I think in 2018 or 2019 they get bought out by Brunswick Corporation.
Right.
Now I'm not sure if you're familiar who they are, but they're one of the largest names in marine.
Yeah.
So they own brands like Mercury, Mercruiser, Sea Ray. You know, they own basically everything. And they bought Freedom Boat Club as a way of entering the pay monthly sphere, the subscription sphere of boating.
Got you. And this is probably a good time for anyone maybe to explain in a nutshell what Freedom Boat Club, what that service is, for anyone who doesn't know. So
basically, Freedom Boat Club is the alternative to boat ownership.
Right.
So it's all the good parts of owning a boat without the hassle of owning a boat. So in other words, you pay a monthly fee and you get access to boats all around the world. We have about 6,000 boats globally, 435 plus locations, and they're always the most premium locations. So, for example, we've got the Thames in London, we've got Loch Lomond, we've got Portsmouth, Southampton, we've got Windermere. We've got 4 clubs in Mallorca. We've got Marbella. We've got Alicante. We've got clubs basically all over Spain. We've got clubs all over France, all over America, Canada, Australia, Dubai, New Zealand, Denmark. And if you have a membership, regardless of where you go, you can utilise your Freedom Boat Club membership to take a boat out at those locations, and the only thing you need to pay is your fuel.
Wow. That's brilliant. And you've obviously seen this for the first time in America, and going back to your early years where you were putting engines in boats and trying to make sure you didn't fall over in Ireland. I could see how this would have really blown your mind. And at that point, you said there wasn't any locations in Europe. Was that right?
2016, no.
Yeah.
No, there was
And
nothing in Europe at the time.
considering what you've just rhymed off as a list there, that's quite a substantial change. So
Between when I came into the business in 2022 to now, they've almost doubled the amount of clubs.
wow,
Almost doubled.
that's amazing. And how did you get into that business then? How did that initial? Because it's clear as day the passion for sailing, boating. The best phrase to use. I know sailing and boating is a different thing. The passion was there. The love for it was there. How did you get into being involved in it?
So, like I said, I continued to follow it.
Yeah.
And then I remember getting an email that said first European franchise announced. It was like 18, 19, and that was France.
Right.
It was going to be France. And I remember reaching out to them saying, is there anything coming to the UK? No, we're not coming to the UK, blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of left it at that time. And then a number of, maybe a year later, it got announced they were launching in London, in England. So once they launched in England, then I was back on the phone. I want Scotland. Give me Scotland. And I said, here's my prospectus for Scotland. Here's what I can do. Blah blah blah. And we had the meeting. I had a Teams meeting with the corporates and the CEO of the business, and they accepted my proposal.
So this is really interesting then. So you seen that yellow car, you seen that wee opportunity, that wee glint. You could see there was an appetite in Europe starting to build.
Yep.
And you went, Scotland.
Let's have it.
Absolutely right. And that perspective, so basically you're going to kind of some kind of sales pitch, with the owners of Freedom Boat Club in the US. Did you already have Loch Lomond and a location in mind?
So I had Loch Lomond in mind. I had zero location. I hadn't talked to anybody about locations. I didn't know where I was going to be. But that to me was secondary. So they asked me point blank, where is your location? And I said, well, I'm working on that just now. And then I said, but I'll have an answer for you, within 24 hours or whatever. So I remember my next door neighbour is the ski nautique dealer. They're the nautique boats, and he's also a sea ray dealer. And I phoned Raymond and said, look, can you give me a place? Have you got anywhere? So he spoke to Glenn, which was up at Ardlui at the time, and said, listen, this is what he's wanting to do, blah blah blah. Have you got any place for him? And Glenn says, yeah, you can operate from here. So then I went back and said, it's got to be Ardlui. Having gone from zero to location within about 40 minutes. And
it goes back to that earlier conversation where you're sitting in front of the potential prospect and he asked you for a small business.
You work it out.
What the frick's that? I'll come back to you.
Yeah. I work it out. Yeah. So we got Ardlui. That's where we were going to be operating from. But so I then I presented to them, about the market here and what the potentials are going to be here in the market, and I obviously had to present to them about my financials to make sure that I was pretty solid as well, and they were quite happy with everything that I presented to them, so they agreed to give us a franchise, and that was late 2022, around October 2022 is when we finalised on it. And then we were boots to the ground early 2023. And by boots to the ground, I mean, buying boats, getting things set up, getting infrastructure set up, getting all the health and safety stuff in order. And what's really interesting is that coming from a construction background, when you see some of the health and safety stuff that's presented to you from other industries, it can be a bit frightening.
Yeah.
You know, it can be a bit frightening. And I remember looking at some of the stuff that we were given as examples for risk assessment method statements, not from Freedom, but from other people who we'd reached out to as consultants and stuff like that. And I remember reading some of it going, that is absolutely frightening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't put that in as a risk assessment method statement. We're going to need something more than one page. You
What
know,
do you mean? So frightening in the lack of detail?
Lack of detail, like very, very, very lax. Nothing in there. You know, the processes weren't full. You know, they hadn't considered a lot in the risk assessment method statements. And I'll stress, this wasn't Freedom. This was a consultant company that we brought in to give us advice in setting up. It was pretty frightening,
mind-boggling. Again, someone who's not very familiar with the industry, but considering the type of things or the type of accidents that can happen with boats, I'm surprised at that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that someone's just kind of wee one-pagers, a few sentences here or there, whatever it was.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah, that would have been a shock. And obviously this is really interesting to me because you've kind of experienced most different varieties of businesses that you could as someone in a career. You know, you've started your own, you've inherited the family business and grown it and implemented a structure, and now you're at the franchise stage. So all very, very different things.
And network marketing.
And network marketing, of course. Can't I forget, as a fellow marketeer over here, I don't want to skim over that. All very different things. Which is really interesting. When you stepped into the franchisee owner shoes, was there anything, apart from health and safety, which is a clear, like, holy shit moment, but anything else in that environment that was, you know, unusual to you or interesting, good or bad?
So yeah. I mean, I kind of felt like when you take over a franchise, you're taking over an already well-oiled working machine that you just plug into and then kind of carry on. But what I hadn't really appreciated was that every market's different. So when you bring a product to a market that I mean, it's a brand new concept. So it's a product that nobody's heard of, that nobody understands. I mean, we get labelled as a timeshare more than you would think. You know, the first thing that people go to is, "Oh, you mean it's a timeshare?" And you're like, "No, it's not a timeshare. It's like a golf club."
Yeah,
you know, you pay a joining fee, you pay a monthly fee to get to use the services. At a golf club, the services is the golf course. With us, our services is the boats. You know, that's the analogy that I use to explain why it's not a timeshare. You're not buying a particular portion of time within the golf course. You're just getting to use it.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And I'm guessing as well, right, where a franchise purchase, I'm guessing that you would have an expectation that would be an immediate pipeline of potential leads and potential customers, and that probably isn't the case.
Well, so that was never my understanding. I never ever thought that when I went into it, I thought, right, okay, well, they're responsible for marketing. I'm responsible for sales.
Right.
That was my understanding of how it would work, and I guess it kind of worked a little bit like that, but not as much as what I thought it was going to work. So it meant me getting back in there and me you know, getting out there and marketing the business and the best way that I figured out how to do that was to be a bit surprising. So we started going to all the exhibitions and trade shows and different things like that. And we went to all of them. Wedding show, boat.
Mm-hmm.
A boat at wedding show. Why is there a boat at wedding show? Well, because we're the only boat at wedding show. You know, the Ideal Home Show. Why are you there? Why would there be a boat at the Ideal Home Show? Because we're the only boat at the Ideal Home. So you became like an attraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people would come round. They would want to. Their kids would want to sit in the boat and press the horn, and I was happy for them to do that. Yeah, but I would have it that no kids on the boat without their parents. So the parents are up as well, and then that's your chance to talk to them about what it is that you do, and then we would get them up to actually see the boats on the water, and we've got a very successful. A very high success rate, conversion rate when we get people on the boats, on the water.
Yeah.
You know, that's the hardest thing to do is get them to agree to come up. But when we get them up there, they're almost always in.
Yeah. Yeah, so they experience it. And that's quite a clever way of thinking about marketing to a certain degree. It's, you know, being the outlier in the room. You know, going to a wedding show, going to an Ideal Home Show, because this is the way I think about it. You know, if we talk about a customer avatar, you know, the ideal customer who's going to use Freedom Boat Club, without, maybe you might have realised this, by the way, at the time, but your ideal customer may also be the same ideal customer that would renovate the house or do something else that they go to the Ideal Home Show for. So you've took a gamble there to go, well, I'll be there and I'll make a bit of noise, but the people in the room are also potentially my people as well. You know, and you know, we experienced that recently. One of our marketing businesses in renewables, and we were at a trade show, and I think we were one of 3 marketing companies in the trade show. Yeah, because it wasn't a marketing trade show, it wasn't a marketing event. But I think that's a something that's overlooked possibly.
It is. I kind of want to sometimes kind of stick to their own industry event type thing. And I experienced that in a company I worked for. It was a startup company, and we went to the Glasgow caravan show for a product that was not related to caravans whatsoever. It was a solar product that hit hot water. It just wasn't it just wasn't a product for that particular show. But it was the avatar of that client base who was walking around buying, you know, £80,000 homes or £120,000 caravans, static caravans. You know, it was that clientele that were also saying, you know, okay, this is quite an expensive product for your house and it's different, but we were the only people there. And it attracted a huge amount of leads just because you're kind of a bit different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not a caravan.
Yeah, makes sense. And it's interesting you said about the franchisee model as well, and how it kind of worked like they done the market and you done the sales, but then you kind of stepped into the market as well. That's always been my experience of franchisees when I was a consultant as well, where it was always the franchisee owner speaking to the actual franchise going, give me more leads, give me more marketing, I want more of this, I want more of this, where you've kind of just went, right, I'm just going to go and get more myself. So I suppose the question is, you know, me and John, as we said, think that's a good idea, but did it work?
Big time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Aye, so it established us in the market as from in the sense of what it is that we do, and it made us a real thing. So we did right at the beginning. We did a ton of online marketing and stuff like that, right? And that got our name out there, and that people started to know who we were. And people would see us online. I think, did you see us online at first, or you hadn't seen us online?
I had seen you online,
Aye.
And I was following you online, but the more networking events I attended, the more your name came up, and
Aye.
Freedom Boat Club came up. At mostly every networking event I attended, you were mentioned.
Aye, so that goes back to a credibility thing. Now, for me, credibility is humongous in sales. humongous. You'll never sell to anybody if you're not credible, right? And being online is how you get the message out there as to here's who I am, here's who I am, here's who I am. But how you get credibility is the physical presence. So us being at the boat show where you can come in, touch, feel, sit on the boat, press the horn. This is the real boat. You know, that's the credibility. Us going to the network, and these are the real people. Here we are. We're not just online. You know, and over the course of probably 2 or 3 years, we built up a very solid presence in the networking community online. And at these trade shows, you know, people they were coming to the Ideal Home show to sit on the boats, to come and see the boats, because every year we would come with a different stand and we'd been in a different location, and it became somewhat of an attraction. In fact, one of the guys told me that some of the other stands request to be beside us,
because of the traffic,
that we bring. So that's been a great one for us, doing those types of events.
That makes sense. But another thing as well, you've not relied on just one. You've done multiple channels there, you know, of pushing the message out, pushing the credibility, and you know, that's ultimately got your franchise going and got your business going. And if anyone's listening to this who's similar to me in a sense, who I've never been on a boat where I've been responsible for steering it, right? That's as far as my capabilities go. But you know, this sounds amazing. Go to Loch Lomond, jump in a boat with the family, and go. You know, how does it work? How does the business work? Do you have like an online portal where you log in and book a boat, or do you phone you up, or how does it work?
So a bit of both. So you get access to our portal, and our portal it's a very kind of ergonomic system. You go on, you select the location that you want to boat at. When you select a location and your date and time, it will then present you with all the boats that are available at that location. You can choose the type of boat that you want to go out in, and you can choose what you want to go out in the boat with, how you want it rigged. Like, do you want water skis? Do you want you know, a towable ring for behind it? You know, not all of the franchises do that, but the ones that do, you can choose all of that sort of stuff. And when you arrive at the boat or at the dock that at your chosen day, the boat will be rigged, it'll be cleaned, it'll be fueled, uncovered, ready to go for you. You take it out for the day, you bring it back, you throw the keys and you walk away. Now, I can contrast that for you to a day in the life of a boat owner, right? Now, a day in the life of a boat owner can go a number of different ways, right? So I had boats for years, and I used to trailer my boat. So I used to keep it in the driveway, covered up, and any time we wanted to go out, I'd say to my wife, you know, you fancy the boat last week? Yeah, we fancy the boat, that'd be good. We get some friends to go, yeah, let's do it, let's go. So then from that could be like the Tuesday. So then I was in planning mode from like the Tuesday to get this boat for the Saturday, right? So it was, is my trailer wheels going to fall off? Are the wheels all right? Is the trailer brakes okay? Is the let's have a look inside the boat. Is everything all right with it? Right, everything's cool. Right, now we've got the car with the tow bar, and we get it hooked up, and then we head in the first sunny day of the year to Loch Lomond, and it's beautiful, and we get to Duncan Mills, and then we realise it's a 2-hour wait to get the boat into the water. So you're waiting there, the kids are squeamish, and she'll maybe take them to the park or something, and you're sitting with the boat, and you know, and then eventually it's your turn and you get the boat in the water, and then it doesn't start, and you're away up looking for booster packs, and you're asking people, I mean, can you jump start my boat, and you know, eventually you get it up and running, everything's great, you go out for the day, you take it away, you maybe go to Inchmone Beach, and your kids are playing in the sand and everything's great, and then they take all that sand and all the crap and they put it back in the boat. Now the boat's covered in sand, and then you head back for the day. You park at Duncan Mills and you go in. You're trying to clean out the boat, and the kids are freezing. Your wife comes down the dock, starts shouting at you because the kids are freezing. She wants to go home, and she's been dealing with the kids all day. So she's vibrating, and she's vibrating in your direction, and then eventually you get the boat done, you get it uncovered, and the two you drive home, you're not talking to each other. Right, that is the day in the life of a boat owner. Right, that is the day in the life. With this, you'll literally show up, you get in the boat, take it out, you bring it back, and you walk away.
Yeah,
it couldn't be any easier.
Cuts out all the stress,
all the aggro. I mean, it really is aggro. Yeah. And people don't realise when you've not got a boat, people don't realise that's what it's like.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? And here's a really stupid question, right? That shows you my inexperience with this whole thing, right? So I'm thinking, this sounds amazing, right? I'm in. Steph, the kids, we're going to Loch Lomond, I'm taking you in a boat, right? And what I could envision happening is get in the boat, I sit down, and I go, fuck. What do I do now? One, where do I go? Two, how do I work it? And three, how the fuck do I get back? So, as someone who doesn't have a clue, right? What would you tell someone for first time usage?
Right. So first of all, we're an RYA training centre, right? So before we even let you steer the boat, you need to go through your powerboat level 2 handling course, right?
Got you.
That's a 2-day course. You can go through that with us, or you can go through that with another RYA training centre, or you might have already done that, right? But it's a prerequisite to joining. Yeah. So as soon as you say to us, we want to join, I say, no problem. Have you got your PB2? No. Right, we'll schedule you in for it, or go and get it somewhere else or whatever. You then get your powerboat course. So now you've got a very basic understanding of how a powerboat works, how to operate it, how to do, if somebody falls over the boat, how to get them back in and all of that. So you learn all of that on this 2-day course. Then when you become a member, you've then got an induction on Loch Lomond specifically. So you come up, now on the course, if you did it with us, we would have already took you around some of the places to go and places to see as part of the course.
Right, okay, got you.
But if you were new and you didn't do that, then we would take you out and we would give you an induction, and as part of that induction, we would show you some of these places that you can go and where you can moor up to have lunch and on one of the islands, or where you can sit in the areas you can go through at the Narrows, and where you can see the wallabies. All of this sort of stuff that's the stuff that you would want to learn when you're going out in a boat. So we teach you absolutely everything, and it's unlimited training as well. So for example, let's say that you go through your induction and you're now out and you're by yourself and you're on the water and everything. We always say to people, if you're not 100% competent and comfortable, don't do it. For example, let's say you're going into Inchmorn Island and you're going in to the jetty at the hotel there, right? And you're getting up and you're like, I'm not too sure about this, don't do it. Just come back, speak to Angus. He'll do a special training with you, and he'll actually take you around to Inchmorn, and he'll say, this is how you would do it. This is the best way to do it, to go in here. And if there's boats across here, let's say that you had to go around this, let's try and go around the other side, and all of that training is absolutely free.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that completely answers any reservations I had in my head, because it's more than just access to a boat.
Yeah. And it's like as well, you rock up a different country and you pre-booked and stuff like that. You get that initial induction, if it was Palma or Marbella, wherever it is, and you just kind of get the lands, the places to go,
and they'll tell you where to go. Yeah. Exactly. Now we are. I was talking to one of the members yesterday about this. We are spoiled in Loch Lomond.
Aye.
Spoiled. It's fresh water. There's so many restaurants, and there's so many beaches that you can moor up on, and there's so much to do in Loch Lomond. It's a bit different when you go to some of the other locations where you've got your port, you go out and then you're on the sea. Now there's a lot of places you can anchor up, but there's not very many places that you can go
stop.
to.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of boating
Experience,
Yeah.
Of course.
So our members, our members are very spoiled when it comes to the all the stuff that you can do with a boat or from a boat on Loch Lomond.
Aye, sounds.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced, and thank you for that. And being fairly local to Loch Lomond and not ever having been on a boat in Loch Lomond, it was so inspiring, completely different. The islands you took us to, and the drop off and the beaches unspoiled, people out there kayaking and stuff like that, just amazing. And the wallabies that you mentioned, I had no idea there was wallabies on an island in Loch Lomond. And some of the ruined castles, and
one of the
just
smallest,
amazing.
One of the smallest castles in Scotland is on Loch Lomond.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you a funny story that about how I found out about the wallabies, and this kind of ties into the scaffolding as well. So I was doing a scaffolding job in Dumbarton, and this was 20-something year ago, and the guy I was working with, he said to me, I need to go and meet somebody up at Luss. And I says, aye, no bother. So he goes up, heads up to Luss, and about 20 minutes, half an hour later, he phones me. He says, Mike, where are you? I says, I'm still at this job. And he said, you'll have to come and get me. I've just hit a fucking kangaroo. I says, you've what? He says, I says, you've not hit a kangaroo. He says, mate, I'm telling you, I've just hit a kangaroo. So I goes up, and sure enough, there's this kangaroo-looking thing flat out in the pavement, and his van's all destroyed, and I'm like, where did that come? So we started researching. We found out it wasn't a kangaroo, it was a wallaby, and then it must have come from Inchcornahan Island, and for all that time, I thought that some Ned had barreled it into a boat and let it go in the mainland or something like that. But what I got to know, having speaking to the guy that occupies Tavannock Island, was that they can swim,
right?
And they swim between the islands and stuff like that. And this one, it must have swam over, couldn't get back, or whatever. And I thought that was particularly interesting. Wallabies, who would have known? But the story how they got there was it was Lady Colquhoun back in the 1920s married a South African. They lived in South Africa for a bunch of times. They amassed all these crazy, ridiculous animals. He died, and she wanted to move home, so she moved back home to Inchcornahan Island, and she moved back with all these crazy animals, including bears and all sorts of stuff. And she had bears on the island apparently until the late 70s, and then they get moved from there down to Cameron House, and Cameron House was a bear sanctuary for a while. And I mean, just things that you learn about a place that's only 20 minutes, 25 minutes up the road. And it's such it is such an incredible place, Loch Lomond.
It's beautiful, isn't it? And I've learned new things about it just sitting having this conversation there. And it's just an amazing story, Mike. And I think one of the things I wanted to ask you is, you've accomplished a lot in a fairly short time when you think about business, right? What's the future? What's your future goals, your aspirations? What does that look like for Freedom Boat Club, family business, which is still there, and anything else you've got on the go, like your fireworks and things like that? What does the future hold for you?
So property is quite a big thing that we're involved in, and we've been building up quite a substantial portfolio over the last probably 8 years, something like that. And for me, it's about building a legacy for the kids. That's kind of what it's about. Is building something that's going to be there for them when they get to probably my age, because I don't see a way where I give them what we've got without them going through some of the hassles and heartaches and stresses that we've had to go through. So I think we'll definitely have that legacy there for them, but they won't just get given it; they'll have to earn it.
Yeah,
you know. So that is what I'm building. I'm building a business that's sustainable, whether I'm in it or not. And then I want to instill some of the ethics that I've built up over the years in the kids, so that they can then they're the next generation, aren't they?
Aye, well, look, if there's ever a reason to do all the hard work you do, it's for them, isn't it? What age are your kids?
6 and 8.
6 and 8. And is it boys or girls?
I've got a wee boy and a wee girl.
One each.
Yeah. And
same age gap as my two, so I feel you're paying 2 years. But I just think what's a better motive than doing something like that?
They're brilliant. My wee girl is the best kid in the world. Like, she is a star child, and then my son is an absolute terrorist. He is a terrorist.
Well, maybe something to do with his dad and his uncles.
Possibly, aye,
talking
possibly.
about those stories earlier.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions for you. I think, if you don't mind. One is about all the businesses you've talked about. What is your favourite? That's kind of one question. If you have a favourite. The other one is Back to Freedom Boat Club and client acquisition and your membership of the club, because you and I have spoke, and it seems there's a wide spectrum of different individuals, corporations, business people, maybe celebs, and I know you can't name, or you might want to, but can you just give us an understanding of who can join and who your membership has?
Our membership is open to everyone.
Yep.
It's open to everyone, and we're price pointed for I think is the majority of people. Certainly, if you're in the bracket where you're considering buying a boat, then we have something for you. Our cheapest membership is £149 a month. That gets you 8 outings on Loch Lomond only. Our most expensive membership for corporate is £500 a month. Now, that is a lot of the corporate benefits. We have a corporate networking group as well. That's pretty high level, very high level actually. And basically I set that up because I identify that people have to see value continually in a system where they're paying a monthly fee for, and Scotland, our weather's not amazing, so I feel it's very easy to see the value in Freedom Boat Club standalone, but to just drive it home, I started the networking aspect of the of Freedom to bring people. To bring people together, and we call it keep it in the family, and some of the larger construction companies that we've got there, they'll do business with some of the smaller construction companies that we've got, and then we've got an environmental company there, and we've got some telecoms companies, and we've got very, very, very high level successful people there, and then we've got Murdo MacLeod as a member, and we've got Lee McCulloch. I can say that because I paid them to say that. So there's the membership is pretty great. Yeah.
And back to your networking skills, the club's a great opportunity for businesses to also network with on water and offshore events also.
Absolutely. We are, in the next couple of weeks we've got a Santa Social event.
Yeah.
And the Santa Social, it's pretty cool. So it's the idea of giving back a wee bit. So the a lot of the businesses are bringing along their wife, kids, and we'll go up to Old Kilpatrick Food Bank. And the way they work, they do a toy drive every year for underprivileged kids, and we go in and we have our kind of Christmas party in there, and they always get about 1 million gifts from the community and different things like that, but they all need wrapped. So what we have done is we've started this kind of wrapping competition. We call it a wrap battle, and and there's a number of different kind of cool, really funny tasks that we set out for wrapping, like fastest wrap, the most beautiful wrap, the worst wrap, all of this sort of stuff, and by making it a competition with all the different tables and stuff like that, the enjoyment in the room is huge, and it's all for a really good cause as well. So that's one of them. Then we've on December 6th we've got our corporate go-karting day. So all the corporates are coming to one of the go-kart tracks in Scotland, and we'll go out and we'll tear up the track for a while. And yeah, it's just about bringing people together. And then during the season, we do a lot of water skiing days. So water sports pretty much every week nearly. We'll go out and people can ad hocly join in on that. And you don't get closer to people quicker than if you're changing into a wetsuit next to them. And often try to help them into it and help them out of it.
Oh, yeah, been there a few times. That's good.
So it's definitely a lot more to it than just rock up and get a boat. It sounds like you've built something amazing.
I'm going to be at this Santa wrap next week with my wife. So one category you mentioned, the worst wrapped.
That'll be you.
I could be in that one. My wife's a bit more precious about her wrapping, so she might be into the most beautifully wrapped present.
Very good.
But, we're looking for that, but you're very humble actually with regards to your charity activities as well, you and Ashley. So that's always great in business when businesses can pay back in whatever way they can.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah.
And that goes for every aspect of life, not just charity, but I think you have to, like the yellow car analogy, you need to be looking out for opportunities, but that goes for all opportunities. Not just opportunities to make money, but opportunities to do something good for people as well.
Right. No, that's good.
Yeah, good karma, good business.
And your favourite business?
Oh, you nearly get away with that. No, answered that question.
So
there.
Definitely Freedom Boat Club, without a shadow of a doubt.
Is it? Okay.
I enjoy construction. It's really hard work.
Aye.
I enjoy scaffolding, enjoy property.
Good laugh.
But it's hard to believe that when I took you out, we spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours together, something like that. That was work. That for me, that was work. And all I did was go out in a luxury power boat, take you around an island, took you onto an island. We sat on a beach for a while. We get back on the power boat. We went and we saw a wallaby island. Never saw any wallabies, but we saw the island. And then parked it up, and we went for a coffee.
We have a nice coffee in a nice hotel.
And that to me is work.
Yeah.
There's no other job like that. So there's no comparison to anything else, I don't think, when it comes to what's your favourite business.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly can't argue with that. I think I'm in the wrong profession sitting here, John. I don't know how you feel, but but look, first of all, Mike, that's conscious of time. The 2 hours have absolutely flown by there.
Has that been 2 hours?
Yeah.
You're joking.
2 hours. So I've got Cam signalling behind the curtain saying that's the time. Nah, they would never do that to us. Just jesting. But what an amazing story, mate. It was great hearing it. I only knew, I wouldn't even say the half. I think I knew.
And there's a lot more stories in there if we're in a couple of hours.
And, there is,
and hopefully we'll have
forever. Aye.
Yeah. But very inspiring to hear both the highs, the lows, but the constant sort of motoring forward. And that wasn't even a boat analogy I meant there, around motoring. I don't know how that made it in. But thank you very much, mate. That was fantastic.
And listen, generally, well done. I mean, you've done so well across many different aspects of business, and it's just great to see. It's just fantastic to be with other like-minded people and people who have kind of properly worked hard and enjoyed what you're doing.
I appreciate that.
And giving back a bit as well.
Thank you for having me on. It's been
pleasure.
I can't believe it's 2 hours.
Yeah, that's it. Done and dusted. And thanks everyone who is still listening at this point. That's another episode in the bank. Thanks again to Mike for coming on, sharing his amazing story. For anyone who hasn't already, subscribe, and you'll keep up to date with any future episodes coming out.
Thank you.